The promise was bold, the ultimate open source MIDI pedal. The challenge? Build an arpeggiator worthy of it. Would he make good on his promise? Hi everyone, when I started the Midynamite last year, my goal was to make the ultimate MIDI pedal, and I was going to have to program a lot of different effects. Today I'm announcing that I'm releasing version 2.0 with 3 very important menus, which I'm going to talk about today. So the new menus that have been added are in order in the chain. So you can see here is the chain of version 1.0, in which you had MIDI modify, MIDI transpose, and MIDI tempo, and now you have the addition of 3 new menus: MIDI Split, where you can split a signal into 2 different effects. Then we have the Arpeggiator. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about this Arpeggiator, but if you know your classic 2000 synth, you're going to see that these takes inspiration from one of my favorite synths. So if you can find which one it is, please put it in the comments. The third effect that I've added is MIDI Dispatch, which allows you to play multiple synths at the same time with one keyboard. So in order to demonstrate the new effects, I think it would be best to show you a little composition that I've done and how I use different gear. So here is the gear that I'm going to use in this video. You have the Reface CP here, which is basically a digital piano. Then you have 2 Korg Volca, the Korg Volca drum, which will play the drums, and the Korg Volca FM, which will play the melody, and the bass will be played by the Yamaha. So the song that we're going to do right now is going to have 4 parts. The bass is going to be played by the Yamaha CP via a Wurlitzer song. The chords will be played by the Volca FM with the flute sound, and the drums will be played by the Volca drums. So let's start with the first effect on the chain, which is tempo, and we will put it back to 100. Tempo will be toggled later to send the tempo to the Volca drum. MIDI Split, so that's where we start. I'm going to use 2 octaves for this song. 1 octave is going to be used by the bass, and the other octave is going to be used by the melody, the Korg Volca FM. So I can just go to my Midynamite. And by the way, the Romagnetics Midynamite that I use here is the white version. I talk more about the white version later in the videos. The split type is note, and we're going to use C#3. So if I play here at the last note, C#3 is here, is the split note between the two. So everything on the right hand is going to be on the Volca FM, and everything on the left hand is going to be for the Yamaha CP. So now let's go to the bus. So here you see low to channel 15 and high to channel 14, and I have buses modify to bus 2 and arpeggiator to bus 2. So let's start with the arpeggiator. Let's put it on. So I have it at 116 at 100 BPM, gate 100%, 2 octaves part and double up, and so this is for my bass, and here we get this pattern. Now I will change it a little bit and not play notes number 3 and number 6, and this gives us a more groovy pattern. Now I have to confess something to you guys. I'm not a very good pianist, so an issue that I have with my bass is that it gets uneven. I will play some parts really quiet and then make it really loud, and it doesn't really matter for the chords, but for the bass I want to have a nice even velocity for every note. So we'll go to MIDI modify, send 1 to through, just means that the signal will go through and no channel change will be made. But now we have fixed velocity of 100. So if I wanted to change the velocity by plus minus, I would press on the select button, but now fixed velocity of 100. And if I press on now, doesn't matter if I play really quietly or really big, it will play the same velocity. Now if I test both parts, Well, 100 might be a little bit too much, so let me press on value to go 10 by 10, and let's go to 70. This sounds about right. Let's make it 75. Yeah, that's perfect. So now the next part will be MIDI transpose, and MIDI transpose, if I go to MIDI split, you can see MIDI transpose is on bus 1, and by the way, the arpeggiator should only be on bus 2. Transpose is on bus 1, meaning that it will affect this part, and I think this sounds nice, but I want to have a little bit more width to it. So an easy way to do it would just shift everything by 12 semitones up or down so that we get a doubled octave. And now you can see the difference between and so we'll go with that. The Volca FM has enough polyphony for that. If it doesn't, you can use MIDI Dispatch. So just to sum things up before playing the song, we have the bass being played by the rephase CP with 2 modifiers, the arpeggiator which plays the pattern, and the MIDI modify which plays at a constant velocity. And then we have for the right hand MIDI transpose that is being played by the Volca FM. And now I have a pattern that is saved in the Volca drum, and the rhythm of the Midynamite is being sent to the Volca FM with MIDI through to the Volca drum. And so if I press play, my pattern is now being played, and I can now play the song. So now we have 3 parts: the drums by the Volca drums, the chords with the Volca FM, and the bass with the Yamaha rephase CP. And I'm going to add a guitar for the melody and hear how it sounds like. Before talking about the different effects, let me talk a little bit about the new menu feature. In version 1.0, when you wanted to toggle between the menus, you had to press, which was okay because you had 3 menus plus the settings. But now with 7, and there's going to be more in the future, of course, it takes a little bit of time to go back to your menu, and if you missed one slot, you need to press 6 times, so it's not the best. I added this new feature that when you press menu for more than 500 milliseconds, you get that menu item, and you can not only toggle between the effects with the select rotary, but you can also toggle them on and off. So for example, I don't need to enter MIDI modify, I can just turn it on, turn it off, and then I can change, of course, all the different parameters if I want, but I don't need to. I can just turn off every effect on the go, and then go to MIDI tempo, for example, and then turn it on. One more thing that comes from having so many menus is the need to have one knowledge base regarding what the pedal can do, one clean manual. And for that, I created a wiki that is on the website, so you will be able to see the link in the description. And on that manual, I put everything about each menu. So there's a page for each menu, troubleshooting, and I've also added completed feature videos about each effect. So if you have any questions about the pedal, you can check there. As you can see here, there's a new color of the pedal, and this is something that I'm really excited to talk about. So when I first released the Romagnetics Midynamite, I really wanted to go with a natural metallic look, and that's when I looked into pedal etching, and this is actually the method that I use for the Midynamite. I talk a lot about it in version 1.0, and I made other videos specifically about MIDI etching. While I think it looks absolutely amazing, it is a lot of work. You have to spray the pedal, then you have to laser it, then you have to do the actual etching, and also drilling must be done afterwards. So there's a lot of different steps, and it takes me a lot of time to do it. And I realized that it would make a lot of sense to have another option, especially if I have a lot of orders around the holidays, for example. It's getting hard for me sometimes to fulfill all the orders. That's the reason why I made this white version. I can order them directly painted and drilled. That way you can have the exact same Midynamite experience, but for cheaper, so that everyone can have their Midynamite. Before we talk about the case for the pedal, let me present to you the first effect in more details. This is a short presentation of what the Arpeggiator can do on the Romagnetics Midynamite. There's a more in-depth video that you can find in the description. So let's start with the tempo. If I play a simple chord, you can see I can change the tempo. After tempo, we have division. That's pretty self-explanatory. We can change the division 1/4, 1/6, 1/8, 1/12, 16th, 24th, and 32nd. So after division, we have gate, and gate is the amount of time, the percentage of time your note will be on. So right now we are at 100% gate, meaning that the notes smoothly play one after the other. If we want to have a pizzicato, we can do it with smaller gate, so 10%. Now it becomes really interesting with the amount of octaves you have. So right now we're at 1 octave, meaning the notes will be played as is. 2 octaves, 3 octaves, and 4 octaves. Then the patterns, we have all the classic patterns: up, down, up, down, up, down 2. So with up, down 2, you repeat the highest and the lowest note. Random. Double up plays, it's up with every note played twice. Double down, exactly the same thing. And order is the order in which you play your notes. So plays everything in order. The next one is swing. Pretty explanatory. Now the length and the steps, they go together, and this is something you might have seen on a lot of Korg synthesizers. The length of the pattern, so for example, let's make it 4, and the steps, if it's X, it's been played, if it's O, it's not being played. And you can hear there's a hole in the pattern, and you can have a length up to 8 steps. Here you can see note number 4 and note number 7 are not being played. So with that, you can have a lot of interesting patterns. Hold, once again, pretty self-explanatory. You press it once, and now you can play everything the way you want. Let's turn it off. Key sync. So if key sync is off and you start to play and you change a note, let's say for example that G is going to become an A flat. You can hear we can have it smoothly between the two. But let's say you don't want to have that. Every time you change a note, you want the pattern to restart. That's where key sync come in place. So now if I put key sync on, every time I change my note, my A flat, the pattern will restart. Now let's go over a couple of things we can do with other effects. With MIDI Split, for example, you can have the lower part being sent to effects and the highest part, for example, being sent to dry. And you can even play the melody to another synth if you go to dry. With MIDI Modify, that's what I'm doing right now. It's changing the MIDI channel, so that can also work with it. For me, the most interesting effect you can use with your arpeggiator is having the MIDI transpose on. So for example, if you do +7, that's a fifth up. You're gonna have all those new notes that are being added, sending the bass, of course. Now, this was a short presentation of what the MIDI Arpeggiator can do. Of course, you can do way more with it when you combine it with other effects. Before we talk about MIDI Split, I want to talk a little bit about these little boxes that you can see here. 6 months ago, I bought a 3D printer called the Bambula P1S, and I bought it for a separate project that I will be doing about language learning. This project will be featured on the channel, but for the moment I was working on the Midynamite, and I thought it would be nice to have a case. So I already had a case for the FS404, which is another effect pedal that I've done, and I took this experience and designed the box for the Midynamite. Just like the box for the FS404, it is fully compatible with Gridfinity, so you can use it with your other Gridfinity gear. To celebrate the release of the Midynamite firmware version 2.0 for a limited time only, the case will be free if you purchase either the white version or the metallic version. Also, for buyers that are in the United States or in the European Union and that are worried about import taxes, please know that I added a DDP, so all taxes included price. I hope that in the future we won't have to use it anymore and there won't be any taxes for imports, but for the moment that's where it's at. And if you have any questions about shipping or anything else, feel free to contact me at this email address. Now, the second effect that I want to talk about in this video is MIDI Dispatch. And since I don't own multiple versions of the same monosynth, I will show you on the computer how it goes. And so we'll be using MIDI USB for that. Here I'm using Cubase, but of course you can use any DAW you want. And in that particular case, I have it connected to 4 different instances of a Moog. It plays a preset called filtered bass. So let me turn off MIDI Dispatch, and what happens if I play something? If I play a chord, I play 3 notes, and it will only play 1 note because it will mute itself. We can use MIDI Dispatch. Let us dive into the different setups. We have synth. So for example, here we have 3 synth. You can have up to 16 synth, so every channel will be sent to from channel 1 to channel 16, but let's pick 3 synth. Then we can start from any channel from 1 to 14. If it's 14, it's going to be 14, 15, 16, but you can choose anything. So me in my particular case, I don't use anything else in that setup, so I'm starting with channel 1, and with 3 I can play 3 notes, and if I want to go here, I have 4, I can do 4. But of course we can go up to 16. Now, notes per synth, here it's 1 because it's a monophonic synth. I'm assuming most of the time people will use it that way, but you can also use 2 notes, 3 notes, up to 6 notes. So for example, if you own 2 DeepMind 6s, you can make it into a DeepMind 12 this way. So the last effect called Voice Delete might be the most interesting of them all, because it allows you to choose which voices are being muted. So here we have 3 synth, meaning that if I play a 4-chord note, one of the notes will have to be deleted. So the default for that of voice delete is first, meaning that here if I play F, A, C, and E, the first note that I played will be deleted. This is the default, but you can also have last. So here in that case, last, there are already 3 slots that are being used, and so I cannot play the 4th one. In order to play a 4th note, I have to release it, and then I can occupy that note, and again I cannot play the first one. Velocity is also really interesting. So it will delete the note with the lowest velocity. So let me play a triad. If I play really quietly, it will not replace it. But if I make it louder, then it will replace the note. And the last one is random, because everybody loves random. This is one thing that I really love about the Midynamite. It has so many effects and so many ways to use it that people create new things. So I try to introduce randomness as much as I can, because I know some of you guys like it. So MIDI Dispatch is at the very end of the effects chain. It's right before the out. So you can have a lot of fun. For example, if you have MIDI Dispatch on, you can use, of course, all your effects normally. But if we go to a polyphony of 2 synth and we have MIDI transpose, for example, up by 7 semitone, here it's up a fifth, you can play 2 different synth with different heights. So MIDI Dispatch will make it so that one synth will receive the first note, so the bass note, and the second synth will receive the modified note. So you can layer your different synth not only with the same note, which MIDI Modify can do on its own, but you can also do it with multiple notes. And the last effect that I developed for the Romagnetics Midynamite firmware 2.0 is MIDI Split. And actually, I didn't plan on developing this one. I was thinking about different usages of the pedal, and as it turned out, MIDI Modify had a split submenu in which you could send your left hand to a part and your right hand to another part. I added a lot of different ways you could change it. For example, you don't have to change by note, but you can change the MIDI channel or velocity, and you can also route to buses. So here's a little demonstration on how to use MIDI Split. I have MIDI Split set to on with MIDI channel 14. So 14 is the Volca FM and 15 is the reface. And you can see I have the type is note, and the split note is E3, meaning that everything that is above E3 is going to be played on channel 15, and everything that is below is going to be played on channel 14. So if I play, I have pipes on the Korg Volca. As you can see, I can play one synth with one hand and another synth with another hand. So that's the basic functionality of the MIDI Split. So as you can see, we have 3 modes. So here we have note, we have MIDI channel, I have split set to channel number 8, meaning that every synthesizer that is connected to channel 1 to 7 is going to be on the low part, and everything that is 8 and up will be on the high part. So this is mainly used if you have 2 keyboards. You can use 2 keyboards to play absolutely anything in your studio, and you can change it on the fly with your Romagnetics Midynamite. If we change type to velocity, now everything that is lower velocity, so below 76, will be channel 14, so that will be the organ, and everything that is above 76 will be played by the piano. So if I play really quietly, I'm getting the sound of the organ, but if I'm playing louder, I'm getting the sound of the reface. If we use a drum sound, this can give us something like that, with low velocity playing one part and high velocity playing another part. Now, splitting your notes into 2 different MIDI channels playing 2 different synthesizers is a very handy tool. But now we are going to talk about the buses, which is where MIDI Split really shines. Now both are on dry, but as you can see, I can change to bus 1, bus 2, and all. So when it's dry, it's going to go directly from MIDI Split to MIDI out. So the note is not going to be changed. If I put it on all, then it's going to go through all the effects that are currently on. So now, as you can see, I have low to all, and high to dry. And since MIDI transpose is currently on with a fifth up, 7 semitones up. So as you can see, the high part is dry, meaning that I can play the piano without changes. But now if I play the low part, which is the Volca, which has a marimba sound, it has that fifth up. If I set it back to dry, the effect is not changing it, but if I set it to all, I have it like that. Now, let's say you don't want to have dry and all. Let's say, for example, you want to have MIDI transpose on the left hand and you want to have a MIDI modifier on the right hand. This is actually really easy to do. You just have to go to page 2, and then we can have MIDI transpose on bus 1 and we can have MIDI modify on bus 2. So the bus settings basically allow you to choose which effect goes to which part, and this is where you basically have two pedals, is because your low part could play some effects, your right part could play other effects, and you can also have effects going to both. And the last use I want to talk about, it's probably the funniest of all, is MIDI Arpeggiator. Here's an example of what you can do with MIDI Arpeggiator on one hand and the melody on the other. With that, you can play the arpeggiator on only one part. And that's about it for this version. I hope you like it. Personally, it's been in my studio the whole time. I use the Midynamite a lot on my personal projects, and I hope you'll like it as much as I do. There's still a lot of different effects that we want to add, and with the possibility of just pressing the menu button to toggle between every menu, there's no reason for me not to put a lot of different effects in it. Now, it took me quite some time to develop this version, but I'm already really looking forward to making the next one, version 3.0. And there's a big question that I need to ask everybody. Which effect would you like to see in the next version? And the main effect that I want to develop is either a MIDI looper or a MIDI sequencer. So let me know in the comments which one you would like to see.